In the 17th century, Spain's sovereignty over the Philippines had been fully established. The colonization brought great changes in political, economic, and cultural life of the people. Christianity was introduced to replace the old religion, and a centralized government was established over the ruins of the barangays. New cities and towns were built, and the Spanish civilization propagated. The foremost aim of Spanish colonization was to spread Christianity. The second aim of the Spanish colonizers was economic wealth. This aim rose from the keen struggle among European nations to control the rich spice trade in the Orient. The third aim of Spanish colonization was political grandeur. By acquiring the Philippines, Spain emerged as a mighty empire whose frontier comprised both hemispheres. For over 333 years, the Philippines was a crown colony of Spain, until 1821, when the Mexicans revolted and won independence from Spain. The Philippines was a dependency of Mexico, being administered by the Viceroy in the name of the King. From 1821 to 1898, the country was a distinct governmental unit under the direct control of the home government in Madrid. The king issued cedulars for the administration of the colony and appointed a governor, members of the royal Audiencia, and the other high officials. At the top of the centralized government established by Spain in the country was the Governor General, who represents the King of Spain. He was appointed and removed from office by the king. He exercised great powers, executive, military, judicial, and religious. The first Royal Audiencia was created in 1583 in order to assist the Governor General and to protect the people from the abuse of the officials. It was composed of the Governor General as the President, 3 justices, a prosecuting attorney, and other officials. The Audiencia was the Supreme Court and also ran the government in case of vacancy in the gubernatorial office. The Encomienda System. After the conquest of the Philippines, Legazpi divided the country into parcels, each parcel assigned to a deserving Spanish national for administration and care. These parcels, including the inhabitants living therein, were called encomenderos. The encomenderos took care of the economic and spiritual welfare of the natives, like being taught the Christian religion and protected from harm, both in their person and property. The loss of the Indies was the basis of the administration of the encomienda, but the laws were not followed carefully and created many abuse. In 1674, the Encomienda System was abolished in the Philippines as well as in other countries. The tribute and forced labor. During the days of Legazpi until 1884, the Filipinos paid the tribute, a kind of head tax, to Spain. The rate was originally set at 8 reales, but was raised to 10 in 1602, then to 12 reales in 1851. One tribute was equivalent to one family consisting of father, wife, and minor children. Another indicator of this was the forced labor called Polo. This was compulsory for all natives from 16 to 60 years old of age. The natives worked in the building and repair of roads and bridges, cutting of timber, and working in foundries and shipyards. Those who were forced to work were called pulistas. A native could be exempted from polo by paying a fee called falya. Another burden imposed on the native Filipinos by the colonial authorities was the bandala. Not only were the goods or products undervalued, but in many cases, they were not even paid for. The Galleon Trade. The Galleon Trade was the yearly trade between Manila and Acapulco in Mexico, a Spanish colony in America. Asian countries like China, Japan, India, Siam, Moluccas, and other nearby Asian countries brought their goods to Manila. Spanish traders in Manila would export these products to Mexico, where they were sold at high profit. These products were shipped to Acapulco, Mexico on trade vessels called galleons. On the return trip, the galleon would be carrying silver coins or silver bullion that the Asian traders wanted. The Spanish Program on Economic Development. After the abolition of the galleon trade, Spain started developing programs to promote the economic development of the Philippines. The economic programs were meant to make the colony self-sufficient so that it would no longer be an economic burden to Spain. Governor General Jose Basco was the first one to give attention to the improvement of the Philippine economy. Some of the economic programs undertaken from the middle of the 18th century until the end of Spanish rule in 1898 were the following. Development of agriculture. Governor Basco made the colony produce export goods that were indeed in Europe and America. Silk and cotton textiles were produced to be exported. Organization of the Economic Society of Friends of the Country. The Economic Society of Friends of the Country was organized in 1781 to help Governor Basco in implementing his economic program. It was composed of people who have knowledge of agriculture, manufacturing, rural development, education, and domestic and foreign trade. The tobacco monopoly. Upon Governor Basco's recommendation, the King of Spain issued a royal decree in 1780 establishing a government monopoly on tobacco in the Philippines. This monopoly took effect in 1782. Under the 1780 royal decree, the colonial government controlled every aspect of tobacco in the Philippines. The government determined the plantation sites, how much would be planted and harvested by the farmer, and the amount to be paid to the farmers. The Royal Company of the Philippines. The Royal Company of the Philippines was established by a Spanish decree in March 1785 in order to develop and promote direct trade between the colony and Spain and to develop the natural resources of the country. The company was required to set aside 4% of its profits for agriculture in the colony. The major problem of the Royal Company was the incompetent officers. This resulted in poor management and the company got big monetary loss. The opening of Manila to foreign market. When the economic doctrine of laissez-faire of Adam Smith was accepted by many European countries, Spain also adopted this doctrine and opened Manila to foreign trade in 1789. Smith was an economist who advocated the doctrine that nations could become rich if they allowed business to operate without too much control from the government. More Philippine ports were established and opened to foreign trade. The opening of the ports of Sual in Pangasinan, Iloilo, Zamboanga, Cebu, Legazpi, and Tacloban accelerated the economic growth of the Philippines. To support the growing trade, the improvements of transportation and communication followed. Better roads and bridges were built, particularly during the time of Governor General Pascual Enrile. A regular postal service was established in 1837 to improve communication. International Telegraph Communications System was established in 1888. The Manila-Dagupan Railway, the first railroad in the Philippines, was opened in 1891.